all joined us tonight. And I do need to tell you, this is a recorded session, and so if should you have a problem with that, I guess you could leave the meeting and you can see our this. You should have gotten a pop-up from it. And the reason we're doing that is so that we can have that available for other people who can't come to the meeting tonight. But we're very excited that you've joined us tonight. This is a plan to create a transit-oriented development surrounding your metro station. And this provides a lot of opportunities to transform this land surrounding the station. This is the second of 2 community meetings. And we will have it available online, as well as we've got some surveys and other things that will be available. So please, we'll have more information as we go along, but you can also check the village website for information. We've got a lot of representatives from the village leadership. We're very excited by that. And we can go on to the next page there. And we're going to introduce our team. The study is sponsored by the Regional Transportation Authority, RTA. It's a grant in partnership with the University Park and the village. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about our team members here. We are, Solomon Cordell-Benz is the prime consultant. We are doing project management, land use planning, and urban design. We're joined by Goodman Williams Group. They're focused on the real estate and market assessments and implementation strategies. And Sam Schwartz is part of our teams. They're transportation engineers. They will be looking at the transportation planning issues in the TOD area. And we'll, as everyone comes up to speak, they'll introduce themselves and their organization. I am joined today by Nick Pryor and Yashashvi and Abhinav. He doesn't have his camera on right now, but anyways, and we're all from SCB.
Saw Albert out there, just to be clear.
Oh, Albert is also with us. Albert Whitfield.
Yeah.
He's not in the office right now, so sorry.
I want to forget him.
So, and one of the things we'd like to do is just have a little time to get to know everyone who's online. So if you are willing, if you could provide us your name, how long you've lived or worked in University Park, and what, you know, for 3 words or 1 word come to mind when you think about University Park. This is to give us a sense of the overall views that everybody has, and, you know, things that we can sort of think about. And if you could put that into the chat, that would be most helpful. That's on the bottom of your screen, should be, and we'll start to look at those items. So take a few minutes to do that. In the meantime, I'm going to go through what our agenda tonight is. So we've gone through a little bit of the team overview and introductions. We're going to spend a lot of our time thinking about the sort of goals for the project and getting your feedback on that. We're going to give you a little bit of an overview. We have a timeline to go through in terms of, this is basically I think about it, a 8-month or 12-month, 8 to 12-month process. And we're beginning the community. This is our first of 3 community meetings to get your feedback. We will give you a brief overview on the existing conditions. Then we'll be followed by market analysis, as well as some transportation analysis. We've had a number of stakeholder meetings, and we're looking for as much feedback as possible. We will have some more, so we'll tell you a little bit about that. And then most of the meeting is going to focus on vision and goals for the site, for the TOD site, and then we'll talk about next steps. So maybe we can just look and see what we got in the chat here so far. I don't know if Yashashvi or somebody wants to read them off. Got any?
I think everyone's still thinking right now.
They're thinking. Okay. Yeah, all right. Yeah. Well,
maybe some good stuff coming up.
Okay. Well, we look forward to that. So a little bit about the project overview. This there's been a lot of good things happening in University Park. I think it's well positioned to, think about the TOD area. You've had the opening of the I-57 and Stunkel Road interchange. That's really changed a lot in terms of the Gateway Park or the industrial park, and it's bringing growth and opportunities to the village. It's also, there's some opportunities to then connect to the transit station. You have your Governor State, further south on south side of Stunkel Road, University Parkway. That there's a real opportunity to connect to that. We've looked at goals from some previous plans, and so there's some, we're taking those things into account. A lot of them were connectivity issues, as well as access for roadways and the use of the parking areas. And what we're doing now is identifying what some of the economic development opportunities are with either your local real estate trends. There's also mobility issues in terms of how do you get to the station, and especially when you're thinking about walking, pedestrian, bicyclists, as well as driving, and sort of and then and finally, one of the biggest issues today in sort of thinking about public safety is also the safety on the roadway for your intermodal sort of bikes and pedestrians and crossing the street, as well as any car issues. So that's the Vision Zero strategy that Sam Schwartz will be talking about a little later. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Yashasvi to give us a little bit of an overview on the timeline where we are at this point.
Okay, thank you, Christine. Can you hear me properly?
Yes.
Yeah. So we are at the beginning of this process. We have already done the existing conditions study that we would be discussing with you all today. And we are currently in the community engagement zone where we are reaching out to different stakeholders and holding community meetings. And we have also undertaken 2 of the steering committee meetings to discuss the existing condition study. And so I'll just quickly go over through the existing condition analysis. So University Park has several advantages. The most important one of them is the Governor State University. We have several local and international students enrolled in the university, and it's contributing significantly to the local economy. As Christine already mentioned, the opening of the I-57 and Stunkel Road interchange has opened up Gateway Industrial Park, and it has connected the industrial park to the greater Chicagoland. And we also have the low tax rates for Will County, which is prompting several businesses like Amazon and Carvana to locate their facilities in University Park. The Metro train station itself is it's the terminal station on this line, and people from as far as Indiana and Kankakee County are also traveling to the station for work and leisure, and it has the potential of becoming a destination. The most important one, we have the proactive community here, and it's of University Park who are actively engaged in different economic development initiatives. So all of these strengths are like inviting different opportunities to the village. As new jobs are coming into the village in the industrial park, we have the driven demand for like retail, more commercial services and housing. And there are several proposed developments which are coming in Gateway Industrial Park along the Stunkel Road. And then there are also proposals for multi-use paths to increase pedestrian mobility within the village. And we also have streetscape development, which is happening along the Cicero Avenue and proposed along the Governor's Highway. So all of that is increasing connectivity to the metro station itself. And a lot of vacant land around the metro station along the Stunkel Road is a potential for greater development for housing and commercial needs. And it is surrounded by natural open spaces. So that's a great strength for the community. From this point, I'll hand over to Kristen for market analysis.
Good evening, University Park. My name is Kristen Hayes. I'm a project manager at Goodman Williams Group. We are preparing the market analysis for this TOD plan. Thank you. So our role here is to really use our research to recognize trends occurring in University Park, from demographics and employment to residential, retail, and industrial real estate markets. So our findings will identify the real market drivers, the real opportunities, and ensure that whatever is recommended in the metro station is rooted in market reality and can be successful. So just going over some of our preliminary findings from the existing conditions really quick. Starting on the left at demographic trends, the yellow bars here are showing you your population between 2000 and 2020, which we see very limited growth over the last 20 years. In 2020, estimated to be just over 7,000. The blue bars here are showing population projections provided by CMAP. While that 20,000 number in 2050 is maybe a bit exaggerated and a bit optimistic, we do think that with the growth of jobs and the land available, that population growth should be expected in University Park over the next 30 years. Moving over to the right, digging into some of the employment data. One of the great stories of University Park over the last 20 years is the number of jobs that have been added. It's really extraordinary. Governor State has still remained a major employer, with the addition of industrial jobs, particularly the new ones in Amazon, and those that are still coming, including the Carvana and other businesses setting up shop in University Park. That number is sure to keep growing. One stat that we found kind of interesting is that about all of the jobs in University Park, which is over 4,000 at this point, only 2% are held by University Park residents. So one of our goals going forward is to really balance that number of those who are working and living in University Park. Next slide, please. Obviously, being a TOD plan, we are focusing a lot on residential. Some of the initial findings here is that there is a pretty diversified housing in University Park already. The yellow and green pie chart is showing you the owner versus renter occupancy, which is nearly 50-50. Below that is showing the housing types. The top bar there is showing about half of the homes being single family detached, which is your typical single family home that doesn't share a wall. But half of them are also single family attached units, which are townhomes, condos, duplexes, and apartments. Moving over to the right side of the screen at housing age, we do see a bit of an aging housing stock in University Park, with less than 10% of the homes being built since 2000. So all of these factors here indicate to us a bit of a need for some updated housing near the metro station, and keeping that diversification really strong. Next slide, please. All right, looking at retail and industrial trends as well. Our initial research finds a very modest inventory of retail in University Park, with about half of all of the inventory being in the University Park Town Center, which is located outside of the TOD area. So moving forward, we're going to inventory all the retailers doing business in University Park now, and really become familiar with those new projects that we know are coming or that are pipelines. And from this, we will be recommending retail opportunities that we think could be successful near the metro station and attracting dollars from both residents and from visitors. Lastly, the industrial market. The industrial market in University Park is very strong. This chart here, the green bars are showing you the amount of industrial space by square foot year over year, which we see just increasing. And then the yellow line there is showing you the vacancy rate, which is incredibly decreasing. So seeing that high level of inventory with such a low level of vacancy really indicates to us that the demand is very strong for industrial here. And so while we will look at all these sections individually, the goal here is to really find the connections between each. So the recommendations for housing, for retail, and for industrial are taking advantage of the positive trends that are already occurring in University Park, and that new developments can complement each other and be successful. So our next step here is to complete a market analysis that will delve into these sections in a bit more detail, and hopefully find some opportunities that will be able to move forward in the next plan that we think could be successful. And with that, I am passing over to Sam Schwartz to go over the transportation.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Mark Bennett. I'm a transportation planner with Sam Schwartz. And our role with this project is a couple of different items. We're looking at certainly safety of all users on the road, and then also working with land use and urban design to figure out how transportation improvements can make this site accessible and usable for people on all modes, whether that be car or bike or bus or walking. So if you could go to the next slide, please. We've done a preliminary analysis so far, a lot of challenges and a lot of opportunities with the site. Certainly one of the challenges is as we're looking to build out a TOD plan and looking at giving opportunities for people to access the site, move around the site and walking and biking and taking transit. Currently, it is a pretty private vehicle dominated landscape. And so that's something we'll be looking at to improve that for other users. It's also, there's also some pretty significant gaps to actually being able to access the metro station if you're not driving. There's no sidewalk or trail access if you're walking or biking. And then currently too, there aren't too many places to walk or bike from the metro station. The university is there, but it's even a little bit of a walk from the university. But as I said, there are a lot of strengths and opportunities. First and foremost being the fact that this train service exists. There are cities across the country who dream of having electrified rail service all day. And so it's a really wonderful asset, especially being here at the terminal of the line. And then the other major asset is really being next to the university. And there's a lot of opportunities for transportation, especially being next to a university setting. There are also relatively low vehicle volumes right now at most times on these roads. So that gives us opportunities to design some better roads. We don't have to worry too much about expansion at this point. And then one thing in specific about this site is the way the parking is laid out. The fact that it's on both sides of Governor's Highway and that there's multiple parking lots gives us a lot of interesting opportunities to be flexible with how we think about parking and vehicle access in the future. If you could go, yep. So we have quite a few next steps. Some of our immediate next steps are really addressing safety issues. So we are currently assessing a lot of the intersections around the site, looking at crashes, trying to find patterns among crashes, and then trying to apply some ideas, whether it be new signals or new road design or new policies that can help make those intersections safer. So we'll be looking at that certainly for people in cars, but as I said, also people who are taking the bus, people who are walking, people who are biking too. So safety is our next immediate step, but we'll be with this project throughout its whole process, giving sort of transportation ideas and analysis.
Okay, and before we give you a sort of recap of where we are with the stakeholder engagement, I just wanted to address a couple of questions that Monica had put into the chat. And they're addressed the transportation issues. Yes,
my name is Monique.
Monique, I'm sorry, I apologize, Monique. And driving to the station is definitely very important. And so we will be looking at accommodating the parking requirements as well as the traffic getting in and out of the station locations. And the flooding that you mentioned is being studied and addressed in the current renovation plan that is being evaluated by engineers for upgrades to the station. So that's in the work. So we do understand that this is, it's not very nice on rainy days in the station right now.
Like today.
So, go ahead.
I was gonna say rainy days like today.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. So, and then, in terms of stakeholder engagement, we've talked extensively with the village to, find out what the primary goals and aspirations and some of the challenges are to the station area. We've also talked with Richton Park and their economic development group there about their previous TOD plan, successes that they had, things that they learned from, and some of their goals going forward or in their station area. We've had a number of meetings with transportation agencies to better understand what's being planned and how that's and how these issues are being addressed across the system as well as individually in this location. We are shortly should have a meeting set up with the governor's state. They have a master plan in play that they're starting, so there will be some sharing of that. We've talked sporadically with some of the businesses. We'd like to get a stakeholder group together for the governor's Gateway Industrial Park, as well as the Forest Preserve District of Will County, homeowner associations, and so community faith-based organizations like those listed here for the churches. We've have a survey that's ongoing. Some preliminary feedback we've gotten from the surveys that have been submitted so far is really looking at goals for housing on the site, and inclination of wanting to have more single family, but some mix of housing types for different needs. And then demand for food, grocery store, restaurants, and in the station area, places for recreational and retail services as well. So those are some of the things that we're sort of beginning to hear from everybody. And so we will have a link to the survey at the end of this meeting. There's also a link on the website for that. So in the moving towards the next
Christine.
slide. Yes.
Excuse me,
Yes.
before you move on, I just want to mention that Governor State has addressed that transportation issue, since many of their students prior to the construction of the dorm utilized the train. They constructed a walking path on the west side of the boundaries of Governor State, and they also have a bus for short stops that take them at designated places on the campus to actually to the east parking lot of train station. So they have been just planning that. What they're looking at is the forthcoming issues that are going to be addressed with Metro, with the flooding, the canopy, and all those other issues we've talked about. But just to mention that.
Okay, great. Thank you. We appreciate the update. And anything else before we kind of move on to our vision and goals? Okay, with that, I'm going to turn it over to Nick and Yashashvi to run you through the Miro board. And that's our idea board. It's a way of being.
Yeah, this is when the fun begins. This is when we can start. This is meant to be conversational, so please don't hesitate to jump in with questions or thoughts. This is really the main event of tonight, is this conversation, so we can hear from you kind of your thoughts on where we're at and where we're headed. So I think tonight we're going to start with this, what we're calling the preliminary goals exercise. And essentially this is just high level thinking of big vision and goals for this site. So the idea is to, when you think about this site and you think about what you want out of the future for this site, we really want to hear that. And we've broken it down into a handful of categories here just to kind of help the conversation. Obviously, you can see some ones we've talked about community, about being a gathering space for people to come to, perhaps a place to provide community service. Another category is housing. Obviously, we talked a lot about Governor State University. So a variety of topics, but please don't hesitate to bring up anything else that you're thinking. And so yeah, I think with that, I'll open up the floor, and anyone can jump in with thoughts about their vision and goals for this site. Don't all jump at once.
Nick, one of the things, being so close, not just to the campus, other kinds of the community at large, because the 20 census revealed that now a majority of the population of University Park are young folk, and young folk tends to eat pizza. So one of the things that would be a good inclination that I thought about, and at this point, they're expanding. And a lot of young folk are dealing with ownerships in these pizza areas. So some kind of pizza entity at that location in the TOD area would be a great opportunity. I just thought about it after watching commercials and seeing that these franchises are actually being purchased by young folk in their 20s to do something out that. So a pizza place would definitely be a plus for that area.
I think that's a perfect way to start off the evening. Ernestine, thanks for that. I think perhaps also a product of scheduling it at dinner time, but I like the idea. Any others?
Well, if I could tune in, besides pizza, I mean, not everybody likes pizza. There could be a variety of different type of food, not just pizza. But I wanted to reflect back on transportation. Now you talk about Governor's State and walking path, but what about the residential area? Residents who want to get there, maybe key in with more bus service going through the village to get to the train station, or recognizing special buses to go to the train station, or recognizing your seniors as well as not just the young people. So some kind of way, put those into the categories as well.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I'm putting it under housing for right now. You said perhaps buses or walking paths or other accommodations for seniors, right?
Right, correct.
Okay.
Nick,
Mhm.
my question is, with the phased development, what is the reference in regards to lane widening in and out of the train station? An example being, will the lanes be widened on the east parking lot, which overflows to the west parking lot for parking, and vice versa in reverse? So what is the intention of widening the street lanes themselves?
I can say it's very early on in our studies.
Okay.
Does it feel like they need to be widened? And Mark, please jump in if you have thoughts on this or anything to add.
So for somebody, I take the train on a daily basis to go into Chicago, and just to give you an idea of the route that I take, I get on a very early train. I'm on the train at 5:15 a.m. in the morning, which getting into the train station that early is very simple. Traffic is extremely light. But on the way home, my train leave work at 3:30. I get on the train at Millennium Station downtown. I pull out of that train station around 5:20 p.m. It is extremely difficult. I pull out of the side next to the golf course. I don't know if that's the east side or not, but on the same side as Governor State, the same side as the golf course. It is extremely difficult to get out of that train station on that side of the road because cross traffic does not stop. I will say that I don't know who fixes this or for future planning. There are some shrubs or some bushes to the right-hand side that's by the stop sign for us coming out. It does block the view of traffic on the right-hand side. So just want to note that for future planning, to consider that whenever you start planning or trying to redo any roads.
You know, that's a good point. That's a good point, because as it stands right now, even though we do have a part-timer out there that may direct traffic, there is consideration of a traffic light there on the east parking lot, which is east of Governor's Highway, on the south side of the parking lot. But there is another issue that we're going to have to deal with, especially in developing the TOD area, is in the open space that's located on the east side of the east sector of the parking lot. The first acre, you have a 40-acre site, and the adjacent contiguous land is 38 point some odd acres there. So we're looking at 78, 79 acres, whatever the case may be. So we definitely have to include that acquisition process, you know, that because that's the only way we can actually develop the TOD area, is we're going to need that information. But east of that, west of the exit in the east parking lot is privately owned by an daycare center. So if we looked at expansions, the expansion would definitely have to be towards the eastern side of that lane, but by the same token, we'd have to do some landscaping removal and or upgrades. So that will be considered as a part of the TOD area as well. The blockage is coming from when you get to the south end of that lane exiting out of the parking lot. It's very difficult to see that traffic, and it's always aligned. It's always aligned there because there's a stop sign there, and that's like rush hour traffic for that area. You have folk coming out of the train station, you have staff coming out of Governor State, you have employees coming wherever they're coming from, heading westward towards Governor's Highway and Stonker Road there. So all those, the landscaping, the transformation of the street restructuring, possible traffic light facility, acquisition, all of that has got to be considered in the development of the TOD.
Hi, hey everyone, this is Trustee Lewis. What I don't see on here is us including input from the youth and the college students because they do make up a part of the fabric of this community. It would be nice to have a meeting or to gather, have a meeting with those young folks and college students to get their input as well, because they do take transportation at the Metro train station, and they're not included in here.
They are included. We're trying to work through the outreach with Governor State to their student body. We do have a student survey as well, so we're hoping that it is posted on the website for the village.
Okay.
We'd like to get it onto the
Yes.
university's website as well. So
Yes.
yeah, it's in process, and we totally agree with you that they're a focus group. They're information that we need to access in terms of what their goals are, because they are the future of your community too, in many ways.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So we're on it, but it's the next step.
Good to hear. Good to hear.
Okay.
How
Thank you,
about
trustee.
post office?
I'm sorry, how about the post office?
Post office?
We've been, believe me, when I tell you, we have been trying with the U.S. Post Office, the UPS services. We started that process the spring of last year because it had really become an issue. We had looked at utilizing space in the town center just for the urgency of the need. So we've been working on that as well. So, but as a location in the TOD center, that would be a great idea to work in that location or to incorporate it, or at least incorporate if we can't get US Postal Service. And right now they're going through some changes with regards to that. At least we could get a UPS, some kind of partial service or drop off mailboxes. So we're considering that as well. So yeah, we've been working on that. That's a great idea. I'm glad somebody noticed that.
Yeah, that's a new one. I haven't heard that one yet. That'd be a great use for this in the TOD. Thanks. Anything else? In the interest of time, I want to make sure we keep on schedule. Any other comments on the vision and goals before we move on to site entrances and connections?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Eddie, right?
Yes, sir. I just want to real quick go back to the traffic, and I know I made some comments on the last meeting, but I really think that land that's ultimately going to have to be attached to the east of the station, if we could have a road go through that land around to the light at Governor State, which I guess will be going through whatever you're going to build over there, houses or whatever. That would, we already got a control mechanism there to control stop and go traffic. And that exit is so close to the railroad tracks, where everything is getting clogged up over there. If we could take some of that traffic around to that light, I think that would be a great idea. And the light is already there. So it's already installed there. everything. So if there needs to be a major, nice wide road for the buses to turn in there and other traffic that goes over to the metro station right there.
Shasta, can you go down to the map for me, please? I want to make
Pardon
sure that I was asking you, Shasta, to zoom down
Okay.
so we can actually look at the map. And if I'm hearing you correctly, you're talking about connecting into this.
It's pretty close to the number 1 where you have the number 1 at.
Pretty close to the number 1.
I believe it
Yeah.
runs into the golf course. I think you have a
Yeah.
problem with it.
Yeah.
Well,
Maybe
down, it runs running. Yeah, the street would be running over in the direction of the golf course. But I just thought we could, it could turn and curve and come out where the Governor State light is right there. Which you think that would be a problem?
It's certainly something to look at.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's definitely early on in our investigation.
Right.
But we're here to collect ideas. We're here to
Okay. Just throwing
everything. Yeah, throw everything out on the table.
Biggest things is it stops some of that traffic from clogging up, because the exit we have right now, like I mentioned before, number one, if there was a God forbid, like an active shooter incident at that train station, or a train accident, a train wreck, and we had to get people out of there quickly, and we had to get emergency vehicles in there, it's the only way in and out. And that's a big problem. So we need another entrance and exit anyway. We're gonna have to, we need to have one. It's almost imperative that we have that.
Yeah, and I would piggyback off of Mr. Bradley, because I'm a train rider as well. And when it's in the morning time, and you also have the trains that are coming through, the CSX trains, for us to get in the station to make our trains on time, we ride in the middle lane, which is not a lane for us at all, to turn into the station just to catch our train. So we're cutting off the traffic in the right lane. So there, like he said, there needs to be a lane for us to go into the station when we do have those trains that are blocking, that are coming through the 12 minutes or however many minutes it is. I don't know for sure, but we're riding in the middle lane. We're illegally riding, and we're turning into just to catch our trains on time. Like Monica said, there's a bottle up in the evening at 5:15, and there's a bottle up at about 6:20 in the morning. So it's definitely something we definitely need to include, an extra lane or a turning lane or something, as Mr. Bradley was just stating.
Definitely.
And
be careful.
guys,
There's a few police
I totally
officers
agree
on.
with you. But the point is, you're gonna have residents up there, and the exit that I was looking at was the northern section of this development area. This is something we had looked at when we started looking at the development being created as the TOD, that the southern exit, or to interrupt the southern border of this property, you'd have to come out the train area, which is middle ways. So you'd have to go within the COD development. If we're proposing housing, the housing will be more towards the northern section of the property, which means that if you were living out there and you had to deal with traffic every day coming through the train in front of your house every day, you'd probably start considering something else. So what we were looking at is the northern peripheral boundary of that property, this north, taking it eastward out onto Crawford. That way it would run parallel on the northern portion of the golf course, and it will come directly out to Crawford. And you can either go north on Crawford, you can go south on Crawford to take the other. So that's another option for that, because definitely if persons are living in there, and we're looking at residential and they pay the cost for these upgrade residential area, I'm sure they are not going to want the traffic coming through on a daily basis, like a mini rush hour in their front views or in the southern portion of their property. So I hear what you're saying, but just to take it further, that northern peripheral would be also a good way. They come out of the parking lot, make a left turn, they go north to the peripheral and then make a right and go east out to Crawford versus it won't stop them from going south because they'll still have their avenue in going south and having to do that rush hour traffic on the southern end, but the northern end would be the primary traffic, primary exit strategy.
Always thought
Okay,
about.
Oh,
Go
so,
ahead, please.
okay, I see what you're talking about. You're talking about the opposite end, behind like the golf course, right? Missy?
Absolutely,
Like,
absolutely.
Yeah, right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And this information is very helpful for us. I mean, part of what the team will look at, and specifically Sam Schwartz, is sort of how to improve the transportation network. So it's not just as Mr. Eddy had said, a single point of entry, but there are multiple points of entry. It allows the flow to work better on the site.
Absolutely.
And so this is definitely part of what the planning process will look at, but it's helpful to get your insights of where your choke points are today and where the turning movements are the most difficult and which times a day they are.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that Crawford, and it's neither here nor there, I guess. I don't know if we care about finances or money, that part of it, but you know, I'm listening to what everybody's saying and I agree with some of it, but is that street even built for the type of traffic, which I don't think it is, that we're talking about right here, bus traffic and all this major, you know, auto traffic and Ubers and all these things that are going to be done on that road right now? You're talking about a major overhaul of that whole section of Crawford, because the way that street is right now, it can't handle even half of that traffic.
Well, you'll see, we've got some information on it because there was an intermunicipal agreement that was entered into between Park Forest and University Park, and that street itself should be able to handle mobile buses, but all of that will be a part of the investigative team of you all SPG when we finish. It'll all be a part of that. They're going to check all into it because the street hasn't been a very long time since it was resurfaced, or I should say constructed. So,
well, Miss Ernestine, also, if you look at the same thing, I agree that would probably be a more valuable solution. However, you are still sending that same traffic past individual houses that live on Crawford. I mean, you diverted from the new development, but you send it past houses in the old development. So either way, we're going to go past somebody's house.
But it's more towards, it's a very short stop. If you do the measurement on the length of the south versus the north, it's a very short stop. And the traffic on days anyway at Stunkel Road and University Parkway is fairly stop and go. It's large, it's buses, it's heavy equipment as it goes. So the question is, who gets there first? Who utilizes it, what? So they're going to be doing all of that. That's going to be a traffic study and all of that. Whatever way they deal with the TOD will be studied as well. So at least we can give them the ideas. They can go forth and do the study. Right, Nick?
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. Again, just to reiterate, it's very early on. And so we're kind of putting all the options on the table. And that's entirely why we have Sam Schwartz here to investigate all of these options and weigh the costs and benefits.
Nick, may I ask, when I had mentioned earlier about the phasing developments where lanes would be widened for ingress and egress for the train station, primarily on the east side of the parking lot, out of those 78 acres that Ms. E had mentioned, how about the probability of creating lanes in between those 78 acres that would divert away from going towards the housing off of Crawford. Crawford is not a street right now that can handle weight load. So what about trying to create lanes in between those 78 acres? Would that be feasible?
I think so. Again, I'm shooting from the hip here. And Mark, please jump in if you have any opinions. But I think, like I said, we're trying to gather ideas and look at possibilities. And so the idea of cutting lanes.
I was just thinking of that as an alternative, as opposed to when Miss E had mentioned about going in and out where people are living. You know, if we could create something in between those acres, somewhere like after 33 acres, 35 acres, create another lane in and out where we could connect to Crawford. We're not in somebody's front yard, is what I'm trying to say.
Sure.
And getting back to the transportation network, there are different kinds of roadway classifications. So there are sort of local roads, which are the ones that all the houses and sort of the smaller sort of scale of the street. And then you can have a collector or in an arterial and things like that. So it steps up and in terms of the types of street types. So yes, when you have 77 acres, it will likely have some different classifications of roadways, and think about how that circulation is going to work so that we can direct more traffic onto the wider roadways that can handle it. It may have slightly different housing types on it or some commercial on it or those types of things where it's compatible to the land uses. And that's kind of how we all work together in putting together a plan for this area so that we can help to manage the traffic and keep it out of what would you consider more of the residential neighborhoody places versus, parts of it that might be a little more commercial or might have a little higher density to it.
Thank you.
Speaking of people's houses, are there any closing comments for the connections to and from the station? Because we want to start talking about housing typologies next. And so if there's any last comments, going once, going twice.
Hey, Nick, this is John McFarland from Metro's Planning Department.
Hi.
I just wanted to add to that. I think the discussion has been great about the traffic issues and keeping multiple options to access the station. But I think it's also important to note that I think a goal of this study should be also to keep the TOD zone walkable. And if there is, I know we're getting into housing next, but if there is new residential development, keeping the area walkable so people have the option to just walk to the station. They don't have to drive and not create these traffic issues.
Yes, definitely. I think we noted earlier that right now there are various holes in the network that would allow people to walk to the station, and that's certainly an intent of this plan, is to start stitching those networks together so that people can access the station however they'd like to, right? Whether it's walking or biking or scootering or who knows what else.
On the notion of biking, have we considered possibly having some Divvy bikes or something that people can get to get back and forth?
I think that's a great idea. And yes, I think that's entirely possible.
Nick, in the second or third meeting, I believe there was conversation about Divvy bikes. So my question is, will there be bicycle paths designated?
We'll identify routes for bicycle paths. We already have the network that's already there today, and we've identified some of the gaps that are in the existing bike network to ensure that we can, start to connect with that, because the last thing you want to have is a disconnection between the bike paths and the station location. That kind of goes along with the grants and the federal requirements and all sorts of things. So yes, we'll definitely be looking at how to create and strengthen the bike network.
I think we'll be looking at all levels, like you said, from the providing the bikes to providing the network, to making sure people know what's there, to being able to afford it, et cetera, et cetera. Yep. Definitely something we like to encourage. Yeah, please.
Nick, Christine, this is Curtis from Antero. Just to give the similar update I gave on the previous steering committee meeting or stakeholder meeting. Regarding the question about bike infrastructure, the plan is to create a village-wide east-west connector that would go all the way from Central Avenue in the industrial area to the town center area. If you might have noticed the recent construction of a side path south of University Parkway across the street from the town center, which kind of starts from one place and ends at another right there at like Kedzie Street. The goal is to continue that side path all the way along GSU's campus to where there's an existing side path by GSU and have that connect into the new TOD area and the new station area. And then that would continue on into the industrial area. So the idea is that people could potentially take the train, take Metro, get off, and then they can connect by bike or by scooter, or whatever new technology there will be in the future to get to work or to get home.
Great. All right. I think in the interest of time, feel free to post any other comments in the chat, but we're gonna keep moving on to the next segment, which is what we call.
I just have one other thing to say.
Oh yes, please.
Since we're on the path of electric, are we adding for the electric vehicles at the station?
Yes, that's been a topic that's come up, I think, in every conversation, every stakeholder, especially considering GSU's program or GSU's involvement in this space. Our intent is to make sure that the station accommodates charging infrastructure and other EV related needs. If that was the question, is that correct?
Yeah. Yes.
And there is a company that has been negotiating with Governor State University to come to Governor State, and they want to install them all over everywhere. So this will be a great opportunity to provide that information to you, and they're one of the foremost contracting companies to put these in. So
yeah, I think there's a great opportunity to not only kind of bring the stationary up to current standards, but leapfrog those standards into the next generation. So so yeah, it's definitely something we're considering.
Thank you.
So yeah, so the next section is, like I said, what we call our visual preference survey. This is going to be a voting exercise. So there's going to be a short intro. We're going to show you some photos of different types of housing, and then we're going to ask you to vote on them. And it's going to be a nice kind of, I don't know, back and forth. We get to kind of suspense of seeing which one wins out or which one's the favorite. It's always interesting. It never works out the way I think it does. So, so yeah, so you see that pop up on your screens, and please, yeah, participate. So the first category of, oh, go ahead.
And you can move the pop-up if it, for some reason, lands on the photos, which it sometimes does the first one. You can move it just by using your mouse to push it over. You have to sort of hit the top of the pop-up.
Yeah, just click and drag it off to
yeah.
the side. Yeah. Yeah, so our first group of photos is what we're calling what type of entrance do you think would be appropriate for the site? We have a handful of different types. You can see one's a little bit more landscape focused, as you can see in the boulevard options. Like number 1 is very heavy on the landscaping. And it goes all the way down into something we call like a retail street down at number 7. Which has a lot of activities, a lot of shops. You can imagine that as you enter the site, immediately you're greeted by these retail vendors and things like that. And a lot of different scales in between. And so if everyone just wants to take a moment, look at the photos, and vote. Tell us which one speaks to you, and then we'll have a short discussion afterwards.
Question.
Yes,
Did we
please.
think about solar panels at the station for energy saving?
We have not, but I can definitely put it on the board. I think it's a great idea, particularly considering the EV infrastructure.
Okay.
Everyone voted yet, or do we need a few more moments?
I think we should take a few more seconds.
Okay. Shasvi is the one that gets the live readouts. You get to see the results as they come in. The rest
We
of
need
us have
more
to wait.
responses.
Yeah. And don't forget to hit submit.
Okay.
Are we ready yet? Is it soup?
We're getting hungry.
I'm telling you. I just got in when this meeting started.
Oh yeah.
Should we have a pizza delivered to you? If we were in person, we would probably have snacks.
You would have food, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
All right,
here we go.
It looks like picture 3 and picture 5 were the favorites. Does anyone want to chime in and tell us why? Tell us some of the reasoning.
Picture 5, which I was sure almost everybody was gonna vote for because it's indicative of the kinds of things that could happen in the TOD area. A lot of activity and which will also bring a lot of different kinds of people in when you have outdoor booths, when you have sitting area, the camaraderie, that kind of deal. And number 5 will do it. And it could be more since not a street, but a boulevard. On a boulevard, the definition of a boulevard versus a lane versus a street, number 5 will be the best out of all categories. That's my opinion, and I'm sticking with it.
Anyone wanna argue?
Missy,
Uh-huh.
my opinion will always be number 3, because from the earlier meetings, I just envisioned to avoid winter dormancy that little pavilion would be a nice spot for that ice skating rink.
Oh, God.
That's family entertainment.
I agree.
Now, remember, this is a transit-oriented district now. Just remember that. It's a transit-oriented district.
Correct.
All right.
You know,
Since you can't sway people with pizza, I'm trying to sway people with an ice skating rink.
Well, pizza was just one of my suggestions, but in the other entities, I made a lot of suggestions of food.
Oh,
types.
yes.
I forgot about pizza, though. That's all.
Some nice warm hot chocolate during the winter at the ice skating rink. And hot pretzels. Oh my God, are we getting hungry?
I think so. I think that's our cue to move on.
I think so. I think we got to speed it up here.
Our next survey is what types of retail environment are you looking at? And no one can say pizza for this one. We have to come up with something else. So these are types of retail environments. So anything from a commercial street to more entertainment focused, perhaps one that incorporates a plaza. Again, this gives us a sense of the types of development. We use words like retail and commercial in very generic fashions, but when we look at photos like this, it really helps us get a sense of how you, the community, envision this place, more than just kind of generic words. So that's why we're going through this exercise. And for the record, while everyone's thinking about this one, we talked about different ways of transportation. I've heard of various northern towns, think like Minnesota and Canada, where there are times where like the river flood or freezes and people end up skating on the river, you know, back and forth to wherever they're going. It just becomes another form of transportation. So would that be kind of amazing
Yeah.
to hear?
Well, they have to be sane to do that, or insane. So I won't count that one. Thanks, Nick, but you can leave that one out.
Fair enough, fair enough. We'll stick to the pizza.
Few more seconds.
Okay, looks like the community plaza won out on this one.
Wow, wow. Bingo. Perfect.
Anyone want to tell us a few comments, or is this pretty self-explanatory?
It is self-explanatory. Wow.
All right, so a few said all of the above, which is nice. A couple said in the entertainment and retail. All right. Any other comments or move on?
Move on.
All right, let's move on. All right, so on the topic of plazas and community gatherings and ice skating rinks, this question is about what types of community programming. So you can see some examples here. Let me, you know, and obviously I'll add the ice skating rink. But these are different types of activities that we can work to incorporate in the development. Like I said, anything from playscapes to pop-up markets, etc. So.
Nick, the urban nature goes back to what Ms. E was saying at the last meeting, as far as about the walking trails, because where the present police department is, and right behind where the town center is, used to be those Thorn Creek walking trails we were talking about. So it's a matter of refurbishing that area as far as cleaning whatever overgrowth or debris, because they're already in place.
Well, that's great. We will talk to the forest preserve about that to find out what the status is.
Yeah, often Thorn Creek held walking on Saturday mornings. They used to hold walking trail excursions. All the way that went as far as where Governor State is. That's a lot of walking, all in that thickness of the forestry.
So it looks like we got a pretty even one here. Someone said none. Care to share or tell us why person that said that? Okay. No, I mean, it's perfectly fine. It's a valid answer. That's why we put it on there. So. Okay. So the next one we start getting into a little closer to housing. We talked about retail, we talked about activities. Now we're going to start focusing a little bit more on different housing typologies. And this first one we're talking about is what we call mixed use housing. So this would be a ground floor retail, and you can see that in some of these images pretty clearly. Like number one, you can see the awnings and the signage there. But the idea is here that there would be publicly facing retail on the first floor, and then various types of housing above. So The other thing to take note of here is we're showing a few different scales of density. And so we want you to think about that as well. So you can see some are 3 and 4 stories versus some showing 2 and 3 stories. So I think that's important for us to understand as well. And I think this is the time of the presentation where I need to start thanking everyone. I know we're a little bit over time, and we certainly appreciate everyone's time. We know that this is, you're volunteering your time for the evening, and we sincerely appreciate it. It does make a big difference in our work and ultimately the project itself. So looks like picture 1 and 2 were the favorites. Anybody want to volunteer some comments?
I like 2 as well. I had minimized my screen and I'm having problems. Oh, I see now how I can get back to it. Yeah, but number 2 would be my option.
Okay. Any comments on why? Anything
I
in
like the
particular?
more modern look of number 2 as opposed to, I think number 1 has more of a different type of community setting, similar to that of like Frankfurt, in that area. I'd like to see us really go extremely modern.
Okay.
And that number 2 gives that more of a, I don't know, technological look.
Well, I was one of the ones that put none.
All right, tell me why.
Because considering we're considered urban, but upscale, I was looking back again at my old concept of the Hyde Park area that loaded with trains. I mean, it's beautiful over there. It allows for multi development, cultural, restaurants, shops, a bit of everything. And I think with number 1, it would take away one of the other commercial first floor. Then you're looking at no other commercial development around, or it becomes junky. You look at number 2, it's beautiful. I'm not knocking it, but it's for University Park, I think it won't fit to that TOD area. And 3 is just out the box. It fits nowhere per se in University Park, but the concept of a series of that Hyde Park area, when I look around train stations, the successful train stations, they just remind me so much of the development around Hyde Park. I don't know, guys. That's just a mental concept that I have in development around train station. It allows for multi-use and not be restricted.
Okay, that's great. I mean, sometimes these exercises, when you tell us none, they're just as helpful as what you do tell us. And so that's why we always put it there. Feel free to tell us we're way off, because it's entirely the part of the process we're at right now. And we'd rather find out early rather than later that we're missing the mark. So great, thank you. Any other comments before we move on? All right, let's do it. All right, so again, we're sticking with the housing typologies. This is, we're focusing on multifamily housing. So this would be no retail, just multifamily housing. So you can see we grabbed a couple different styles and types, and yeah, we're looking for your opinion. And again, I'll take this moment to thank everybody again for their time. Most of the people are sticking on, so it's great.
Few more seconds.
Good.
Yeah.
Right. So no one picked 1, and then we had 2, 3, and 4. And like I said, no, that's perfect. I mean, that tells us just as much as telling us what you do like. So that's great. Any comments? Going once, going twice. All right, if no one has any comments, we'll keep moving and talk about townhomes. So again, same exercise. I think we're pretty familiar with it at this point. Got a couple of different styles of townhouses, and yeah, a couple of different formats. And so yeah, so the idea is what do you think is appropriate for University Park, for the station area? I think both now and in the future. What kind of place do you see? What kind of place do you want? And just for those curious, we have one more exercise after this, and then we can wrap up. So the end is in sight. All right, looks like everyone liked, well, not everyone, sorry. Most of the people liked 4, and then 1 and 2 got honorable mentions. So anyone want to care to give some insight into what you're thinking?
I'd like to know on number 4, because that was the one I wanted to vote for, but once I minimized my screen, I couldn't figure out how to get back to my screen. But I would have voted for number 4 as well.
Okay.
I like the fact of, oh, let me ask, will there be parking behind the buildings for access to the buildings?
Yeah, this, I should have mentioned that. It always comes up around this one.
I know we had talked about 1 and 2 before as far as parking. Well, we talked about 1, 2, and 3, but
Yeah.
I didn't notice for 4. I don't recall any conversation about parking.
Yeah, our intent is, depending on which one we go with, to accommodate the parking as appropriate. We would determine how many parking spots would be needed for developments like this, and then yeah, typically provide it behind the townhome.
Because with all of the designs, there'd always have to be visitor parking included as well, aside from just, resident parking.
Yeah, yeah, of course. There's always yeah, dedicated resident parking exclusive to the units, and then yeah, various other on-street parking or other parking lots in the development. So that's certainly a detail we will work through. But obviously this exercise is kind of to determine the types of housing that we're going to have, and that'll help us determine the number of parking spaces. So it's certainly something we'll consider, but we wanted to focus on the type of housing at this early stage. Any other comments on townhomes? Till we get to our finale, our last question. Single family housing. You got to come up with a better one to end on. This one is again, yeah, the same exercise. A couple different styles, couple different types. You can see one that has the parking entrance from the front, pretty typical suburban style. Number 2. Number 1, this came up previously. There is a driveway that would lead to a parking garage in the back. You can kind of see it in the background if you look off to the left, like back here. This is where the parking would be in number 1. And then for number 3, there would just be a parking in the back. So.
Number 1 and number 3, they don't really address inclement weather. I mean, the exposure for inclement weather, whereas number 2 does address that. Wow.
Maybe a little bit more about
They heard
that.
you.
Not just inclement weather, but safety as well.
Mhm.
You know, when you've got kids piling out of the car, you got 2 or 3 of them and they're all, they've got that energy of moving. You know, it's easier to control with number 2 because you're pulling in, you're going in. Whereas 1 and 2, I don't know how close they would be to the streets where you got a concern with safety, especially those little active little ones.
Any other comments on these houses?
I like to get some feedback on probably from people who did 3. 3 seems more like the city, and this is the suburbs, and we like space. So to be so close to each other, I like to see more of 2. And 1 is okay, but this 3, I like to hear feedback on that. Why you want to be so close to each other in a suburb?
That's basically some of the similar comments I made at the last hearing. You're absolutely right. That's what I felt in seeing the housing out here, and to upgrade and have that represent University Park. That would
Right. I mean, this is the suburbs, it's not the city. So I'm just curious of whoever voted on number 3, what's the feedback? Are they thinking about the city, and there's more room when you're so close to each other, but in the suburbs, we want our space?
Are those 0 lot lines, Nick, for number 3?
Hard to tell, but I don't think so. My guess is the lot lines would probably split in between the houses. And so you'd have a couple of feet on either side.
Lolita mentioned it's a difference in urban and suburban.
Right.
Definitely. Does anybody give it one more chance for those who voted for 3? Maybe they like the porch. Maybe they like the trees. I'm not sure. Anybody?
Those porches mean it's, oh, wow, that's a challenge when you're carrying packages.
Well, it's, I think it's up to them if they wanted to share their thoughts, but we got their vote. And I think that's the last question we have right now. And I think we can, jump back into this. And so again, I'm going to say thank you. I know you guys are everyone's volunteering your time. We sincerely, really appreciate it. This is super valuable feedback for us in our process. We can't thank you enough. Hopefully you had a good time, at least a little bit of fun, and that you'll join us again in towards the end of May. We haven't quite scheduled it yet, but please stay tuned to the city's website for the next one, for community meeting 2, where we can we'll go back and we'll digest this feedback we've heard, everything from the surveys to all of the comments we've heard tonight and the comments we heard last week from the first round of this community meeting. And we'll advance the project and come back and show you where we're at and get more feedback. So hopefully you had fun and hopefully you'll invite some friends. The more the merrier. And we're also hoping that it will be in person. Hopefully we can be out having this conversation live with pizza, with all other kinds of snacks too. So
You took the words right out of my mouth, Nick. In person with pizza.
In person with pizza, yeah. Great. And so one last note, unless there's any other comments, we do have the survey out here. You can try to think of, we do have it in the chat. Thank you very much, Yashasvi. We have the survey in the chat. There's also, this will be posted on the city's website, as well as I think a variety of other avenues. Please share this with anybody and everybody that has a perspective on University Park. Again, we'll try to get as much participation in this as possible. So,
and there is a QR code. So if you just use your phone photo, you can get to that. And if you want to just quickly take the survey, you can do that now. We have one survey is for the community and another one is for the students. But they, as Nick had said, we've got them in a variety of places. So you can go to the website for that.
They can only take once.
That's right.
Don't try and stack the deck.
Nick, when do you anticipate the next meeting? Next couple of weeks or so?
For the next community meeting, so in this format, will be a little bit longer.
It's 6 weeks
so
typically.
Yeah, the end of May.
6 weeks? Okay.
Yeah. So we're going to take all the information we heard to date, the feedback we get from the stakeholders. We're going to look at the land that's available. We have a market analysis that's being done, and then we start to look at what the planning options might be, and for both roadways, parking, access, parcels, block pattern, all sorts of things, and we'll bring those to you in the next community meeting, and then we'll have discussion about it, maybe draw a few other options, whatever people want to give us feedback on, and then that will be that will be very interactive. So we're really excited about having that together in person with people, so that we can talk individually as well as in groups, maybe break into tables, and have a little bit of a group think about what's best there, and we'll gather everyone's thoughts. But then you'll see in real physical terms, like how much land certain things take up and how many units you get out of it and those types of things. So we're excited, and we greatly appreciate all the input you've given us so far. This really puts us in good stead to getting a plan that's going to meet your goals. So with everybody on the team appreciates it, and we look forward to meeting again soon. And if you would like to get information, you can also put your email address into the chat. Well, if we want to take a minute, we could collect some email addresses. That way we'll make sure we get it directly to you, and we can build a sort of informational set of email addresses that we can then give you when the next meeting is, and or if there's been an update on the website. Otherwise, you can check back to the website.
With that, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Have a happy Easter.
Yes, and have a great rest of your week. So
okay. I want to be the first to say happy Easter. That's all.
Yeah. Well, happy Easter to you too.
All right. Good night, everyone. Thank you so much.
Good night. Thank you,
Good
Mayor.
night.
Good night. Take care. Bye-bye.